The presenting sponsor for OnEducation is Schoology. Schoology is not only the best learning management system, it's also a community of lifelong learners. Join OnEducation at the Schoology Next Conference July 16th through 18th in San Diego, California. This is a chance to immerse yourself in hands-on workshops, advanced product training sessions, and best practice presentations. If you want to learn more about Schoology and how they can help you advance what's possible, visit Schoology.com.
I say what I want. Friends, welcome to OnEducation. I am Mike Washburn.
And I'm Glen Irvin. Friends, we have an awesome pod for you today. We're going to have a debate on PlayStation versus Xbox, check on the political landscape, including a proposal by Democrats to boost teacher pay. We'll talk about a dating app for teachers, and our guest this week is the innovative Paul Darvasi.
We've had a week.
Yes, we have. It's been insane, actually.
It's been beyond insane. I think that people are getting... I worry about how much to post on Twitter about numbers.
Yeah, we don't want to be annoying, but we're also really excited about it, and we want to thank people for this.
I'll run it down just a little because it's really quite ridiculous. I won't post like the charts, but if you saw the charts, and I just sent Glenn a picture of the charts.
Yes.
From the analytics, and it's like there's all these little lines, and then a giant skyrocketing line going up. Like we've basically we've quadrupled our downloads for the month over April.
That's just amazing. It's ridiculous.
We have almost 8 times as many downloads this week as the average of the previous weeks.
Jeez.
And even on the weekends, like today we're recording on a Sunday, and we might have our third record day of the week, like in terms of the most downloads in one day.
It's those charts,
might happen
right?
again today. So
yeah.
We broke our daily download record on Tuesday. That's when so I didn't think much of that. It wasn't a huge number. But then on Wednesday, we shattered Tuesday's number by double.
Wow.
And that's when I sent Glenn a message like something's going on here. It's weird. And then on Thursday, so that's when we started like really paying attention and posting on Twitter, like, you know, things are happening here. And then Thursday we broke Wednesday's record. Barely, but we still we broke it by 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 downloads over Wednesday. So we broke it again on Wednesday, and then we had a lower day on Friday.
Makes sense. But
even that lower day was easily double our average downloads previous to this week. It was just under our first record day from Tuesday.
Wow. So
it was still a really good day, relatively speaking. And then today, or yesterday, we had a fabulous day, double Friday yesterday. And now today we are already at, today we are double yesterday. So we're already, and there's still multiple hours to go in the day.
That's just crazy.
So,
what I think is happening, well, number one, people are talking about the podcast, because I've seen that actually on Twitter, like people are mentioning us that we don't even know. It started off with our core group of people in our professional learning network and people that we're spreading the message to, and then those people are now talking to other people, but eventually it's reaching people we have no idea who they are.
We don't even know.
Exactly. And then now that we're actually on the charts, which that's what we've been talking about, we've been number one most of the week, right?
Yeah, share the chart numbers. The chart numbers.
So
you track this. So I'm in Canada, and I can't see the U.S. chart. So Glen's Glen's looking at the U.S. chart numbers. I see the Canadian chart numbers, which aren't as relevant to this as the U.S. chart numbers. So what's the details?
So really, I mean, the biggest thing is there's two different types of, well, there's multiple charts inside of the iTunes, specifically the iTunes charts, the way that they keep track of, and
Right.
in the top podcasts for a specific category called educational technology, which is interesting that we're in that category. But we talk ed tech, so it's fine that we're in there.
I put us in there by accident.
Yeah, but we've been number one in that category most of the week in ed tech. But the really
Sorry, what number?
Number one, baby.
What number?
But the really cool one, and this is the one I keep telling Mike about, is there's a general education category. Now, if you think about education podcasts, I mean, they vary in all over the place. They're not just specific, honestly, to just education. If you go in there, you can pretty much put anything in whatever category. So we're competing against thousands and thousands of podcasts.
The TED Talks or TED Talk podcasts are in there?
TED Talks. There's a bunch of different things like famous people that I know. Yeah, language ones. A lot of really, really high-level podcasts. And we've been in the top 15 for most of the week. But I just checked it right now just to confirm. And we're number 9 in the education category, that's a crazy number.
There are well over 10,000 podcasts in the education chart.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And so thank all of you guys, because it's because you're listening and your feedback, and because you're spreading the word that this is actually happening, and continue to do that. And if you still haven't gone on to iTunes and just given us just a quick rating, if you just want to do that, but even better, a lot of people this week, as Mike mentioned, I think on Twitter also said that a lot of people have been giving us reviews, and that's really powerful because that helps you build your momentum also inside of the iTunes charts. Plus, it gives people an insight as far as what we're talking about. And what we're talking about is you guys, our teaching community, and everything related to education.
When people are looking for something to listen to, and to be honest, this is happening thousands and thousands of times a day. Podcasting is exploding, and people are looking for entertainment that aligns to their interest. And so when you have people looking in education, they're going to see our podcast is in the top 10. They're going to see a pretty rad logo that I'm proud of.
That is awesome.
And then they're going to look at the reviews and see that we have 30 plus 5-star reviews, and then they're going to maybe listen to the latest episode. And if they listen to the latest episode, they're going to hear the amazing music by our friend Jake Codewise.
Yes.
We have a lot more to say about Jake later. He's going to do some yeoman's work for us in the next couple months. So, but Jake is also our engineer. And he's a man of many, many talents. He's got a team he's putting together, and they're doing crazy good work. So they'll hear the song, and then they'll hear the beautiful voice of Glen Irvin, and we're off to the races. So, listen, it's coming together really well. We're working incredibly hard on this, and always trying to improve. And yeah, we just can't thank you enough. It's been a hell of a week, and we just hope that this podcast, this episode doesn't let you down, and that we just keep the momentum going, because things be happening, man.
Big time.
So speaking of things happening,
yes,
we're really excited about ISTE. I'll be honest, I probably wasn't excited about it before as I am now.
You're getting fired up, aren't you?
Well, I mean, things are happening. We've got some plans, and the plans are pretty legit now.
Yes.
So
we're starting to get everything all lined up.
We have a giant document.
It's intimidating, actually, to look at it. We're like, wow, that's some summer work there. But it's awesome. Such an awesome opportunity to go down there and to be able to go ahead and connect with all of you.
So let's run down a little bit about what's going to be happening. So we're going to do a daily podcast every day, starting on Saturday.
Yes.
So we're going to do Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We're going to do 5 30-minute podcasts running down what's been going on, what we've done, who we've talked to. We'll probably have an interview for every single one of them.
Yes.
And we have... I'm going to hold on to something else about that in a second. But yeah, so, and then we're also going to do a 1-hour podcast.
Just like an overall regular episode too. Yes. So we're running 6 episodes, it sounds like. Correct?
6 episodes total.
Yes.
Yep. And we really want to be the go-to place for all things ISTE. We're going to interview a lot of cool people. We've confirmed a bunch. We are going to be speaking with some vendors that are going to be there that we've lined up, some people that we're really excited to talk to. We're going to also be talking to some of the people from ISTE specifically. I think we're going to be interviewing the president of ISTE as well as the vice president who's in charge of the actual conference. So if you have questions for those people specifically, you can go down to the bottom of our webpage on educationpodcast.com and just send us a little note with a question you might have and for whom, and we will we'll see if we can squeeze it in.
For sure.
So yeah, 5 30-minute episodes, 1 60-minute episode. We'll also be talking to our friends from Schoology. We're going to be speaking with, I believe, either Ivan or Jeremy. Ivan's the vice president of marketing, or Jeremy is the CEO, and talking to them a little bit. They're certainly who we need to thank for helping us get here.
Yes.
So
yeah, they got us started.
We're going to be talking with them as well at ISTE, and we're going to a lot of really cool events. What events are we going to, Glenn?
Well, we've been invited to a lot of different things, and I'm looking back at our chart here. I didn't know you were going to throw that question on me.
That at you. The Poetry Slam.
The Poetry Slam.
Poetry Slam.
Carl Hooker. I'm super excited about that. Actually, just being able to go to these events is really where you start connecting specifically with people, and then being able to kind of get their vision and being able to share that if we get some tidbits from people, and being able to go ahead and do that. What else are we going to do? I'm trying to look.
Badge Summit?
Yeah. Badge Summit is actually on the Saturday before ISTE actually starts. Mm-hmm. And Noah Geisel was on the show a few weeks ago, and we're super excited about going to that. It's a 1-day event. It's fantastic. It's in Chicago also, so we're hitting all of these events to be able to go ahead and just capture, especially if you can't go. Mm-hmm. If you can't actually go there, we want to try to capture what's going on there and what's of significance that you can pick up, and we can share that. We're
gonna own the hashtag not at ISTE. That everyone will end up posting.
Yes.
If you're gonna be living on that hashtag vicariously, then utilize us, because we're going to be there and trying to recap. I almost forgot. We're going to try to talk to all of the keynote speakers.
Absolutely.
We've confirmed, I believe, 2 of them, and
maybe.
We've reached out to, I think, the rest of them, or at least most of the rest of them. So we want to talk to the keynote people after they've delivered their keynote to just see how they feel about it. How it was received, talk about the experience a little, and maybe just recap, a little bit of what they talked about for the people that didn't come.
Exactly.
So that's exciting as well. So lots of ISTE stuff is coming. We're really pumped about the coverage, and we have an announcement to make. You want to do that?
Sure. So our big announcement is we actually, for these specific episodes that we're going to run at the ISTE conference, we have an actual sponsor for those specific episodes. And our sponsorship is coming from an amazing, awesome company that I am a big supporter of, and so is Mike. And it's called Teacher Gaming. And basically what it is a company that provides actual games, not educational games. I guess that's the best way to be able to turn it. Like actual commercial type of games, and turns them into educational lessons that are available for teachers to be able to go ahead and use. And you log in or you sign up for their platform, and then you have access to all of the games that they have available. So for example, in a junior high or in an elementary classroom, I could see a teacher being able to use a variety of these games to expose the kids to science content and social studies type of content, and then being able to have those discussions during class. And their games are top notch, awesome stuff, and we're going to be talking more about them and why they're so awesome.
So these are the folks that were the original makers of Minecraft EDU.
Yes.
And I believe, I actually, now that we have contact with them, and I can probably just ask this, I'm wondering if they're still working on the Kerbal EDU.
Yes, they are. Yep, they are. It's actually part of their site. So they still have Kerbal. They have another awesome thing called Universe Sandbox. I don't know if you've ever used that one, Mike, but
I've heard about it.
It's fantastic, and I highly recommend anybody that's ever going to talk about astronomy,
space,
anything related to space. You can actually create, Mike, your own universes. So you start with the sun of any type you want, and you decide what types of planets to go around it. You decide the gravitational pull, and you let the universe run for thousands of years and see if it, what happens. You know what I mean? You can run comets through your thing. What happens if a comet explodes on the sun? What's the effect, on everything else? And it's all related specifically to actual physics. So it's a simulation kind of versus being an actual video game. It blows me away. I mean, that was one of the ones that I saw that they are that's part of their package. I was so happily surprised by that.
It's amazing. So yeah, teacher gaming. Thank you for helping us keep the lights on.
Yes,
and it's super exciting. We're gonna be doing a lot of awesome stuff with the sponsorship, and it's awesome. It's just working out so well. And so you'll be hearing, they are our exclusive sponsor for the 5 episodes, the 5 30-minute episodes, and that's pretty rad. Listen, I still don't get this.
This next part?
I don't. I mean, I don't understand. Did you grow up just playing Xbox?
No, I mean, I had a PlayStation 1. The original one, the first one that ever came out. It's not that I didn't like PlayStation. It's just that when the original Xbox came out, I quickly gravitated towards it. And then I've been a loyal Xbox customer since then.
I just wonder if I really know you.
Every single time we have these discussions, we figure out, oh, he's on that end.
Glenn and I got into a fight on Twitter.
Yes, PlayStation versus Xbox.
And it reminded me of what I don't like about them.
Yes. Well, PlayStation does have, I got to give them credit, they have some exclusivity with specific games.
Better games.
And
better hardware.
And Xbox also does have their own exclusivity with specific games. But I was going to say, as far as for my argument, one versus the other, one of the things that I love about the Xbox, especially the Xbox One, is the ability to be able to play all of the previous games that were the fun games on, for example, the 360 version of it. And then, even better, and I don't know if you even knew this, but if you have a Windows 10 machine, you can actually play your Xbox One games on your PC and vice versa. So you can actually be able to go ahead and connect your Xbox controller to your PC, be able to play the game on there, which kind of provides you with an extra location for your gaming abilities, and then be able to go ahead and play those games there also. Now, I don't know how many people actually do that, but I know I've tried it out and done some different things with it, especially when I'm going to record some things that I'm playing on or whatever it might be. It's awesome to be able to go ahead and use the Windows 10 machine. But I know that PlayStation is pretty amazing too.
Well, I mean, so I don't mind giving credit to Xbox in particular for the online. Xbox Live is way better than
it's awesome.
any of the PlayStation Online stuff. I would say the PlayStation Plus is better than Xbox Live in terms of like the free games that they give away and stuff like that. Polygon, actually, if you follow the game website Polygon, they actually run down every year. They do like a value evaluation of the games and their market value.
Sure.
Of what was given away, and PlayStation almost always wins that competition. There are months where the Xbox giveaways are better, but I mean overall, I have an Xbox One.
Oh, you do?
I'll admit.
Yeah.
No, I have one.
Okay.
Isaac plays Cuphead on it.
Oh, that game is amazing, and it's exclusive to Xbox too. There you go.
There you go.
We win.
So Isaac plays Cuphead on it, and that's mainly it is the Cuphead box. That's its primary use.
Okay.
We use our PlayStation. I have a couple PlayStation 3s because we use them for like Blu-ray players and media players.
Sure.
The PlayStation is the best media player there is.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that because it has the Blu-ray player. Yes.
Right. So it's a no-brainer. Like, we have a PlayStation 3 in the living room attached to our big TV. We have a giant TV, by the way. I should just...
Of course you do, Mike.
When we renovated our basement in the old house, we tried to put a home theater in, and then the contractors kind of screwed us a bit and put a bulkhead right where the throw of the projector would be. So we had bought the projector before they had built the bulkhead. Yeah. So we had to return everything.
Oh, and then get a TV.
And then we bought a TV. So we have a 70-inch TV.
Oh, jeez. Mm-hmm. Man.
I got
TV envy.
It's pretty awesome. And then we have a PlayStation 3 upstairs in our bedroom, Cheryl and I's bedroom. And then we have the PlayStation 4 in the room that I'm in right now.
You know, with streaming services, though, now, Mike, I don't know how many people actually still go out and buy... I mean, I know some people that are hardcore. Like, if you have a 70-inch TV and a surround sound system, like you probably do, like basically kind of like a theater type of thing in your house, then getting the Blu-ray and then playing it through, like, for example, a PlayStation or a Blu-ray machine, and then getting that experience is very similar to the theater. I've had that, but for all the rest of us peons that don't have that kind of setup, then we just stream stuff. You know what I mean? And it's
probably
good enough.
We probably buy these days one or two or three Blu-rays a year. We're not buying like every movie.
Yeah.
So just we probably have 40 or 50. We have all the Harry Potters. We have all the Lord of the Rings. We have all the Star Wars. We have the Star Treks. We have all the superhero movies.
You're saying you're a big mega nerd, right? What? Just like me.
If it wasn't obvious to begin with. I mean, we named a title of our podcast after a quote I said where I said I own all the games.
I know. That's awesome. Yeah. We should put this on the on Twitter, PlayStation versus Xbox, like a little poll. That'd be fun.
Well,
I'll do it.
Okay,
I'll do it on mine.
I don't know if you I don't want to see you hurt.
Oh, I know. I actually lost last time too.
You did lose last time. Do you really want to lose? What is it like to be so wrong all the time, Glenn?
I keep thinking that people are going to agree with me, and then they don't. That's totally fine, though, people. Man. You guys are awesome.
All right. Well, listen, we're gonna take a break. When we come back, we're gonna tackle.
We can tackle it too.
We can tackle it, whatever that is. I make up my own words. I say what I want. We have the #1 podcast in EdTech.
You can say tackle. It's okay.
Right. We're gonna tackle the latest in politics and policy on both sides of the border.
The end of the school year is finally here, and we have an awesome professional development opportunity. Badge Summit 2018 is happening at Columbia College on June 23rd in Chicago, Illinois. This one-day event brings together some of the brightest and most inspiring digital badge thought leaders on the planet for highly interactive learning and sharing. Attendance is limited to 250 people, so get signed up. For more information, go to badgesummit.weebly.com.
All right, friends, welcome back. I find it amazing how much is happening in the world of politics and policy when it comes to education. I know when we started this podcast, Glenn, that we'd always be talking about politics and policy. We were both really interested in it.
Yes.
But every week we write this outline and we never struggle to find. We literally just cut something.
We usually have too much stuff. Yes.
We have too much stuff. So let's get into what's going on this week. And this is just education stuff. Like, I don't even have to go on a Trump rant to cover what's happening just in politics and policy related to education.
Exactly. That could just happen every episode, and it would be the whole episode, and that would be horrible.
We could literally have a
talk about negative rankings. Exactly.
Edu-politics on Edu-politics.
Yes.
Show idea.
Edu-politics.
Edu-politics.
Yeah. But
don't take that. It's mine. You heard it here first.
you just licensed. Yes.
Right. Trademark. The Democrats' better deal. Which is like basically their platform for the Senate and the House, the Congress, includes. Now this is awesome because I dug into this because the headlines just talk about teacher pay, but you've talked a lot about the idea that this needs to be more than just about teacher pay. So all these headlines talk about teacher pay.
Yes.
A $50 billion boost to teachers' pay. But this also includes a $50 billion boost in like infrastructure and support staff.
Yes. And that's that's really the big part about this. We're not just talking about the $50 billion for teacher compensation and to be able to retain teachers, but also a federal boost in the ability for schools to fix their infrastructure. As we've talked about, a lot of our schools actually are literally crumbling. And the resources that these schools need are not being provided for. Teachers are buying their own supplies and resources and those types of things. Mm-hmm. So this would establish a $50 billion fund specifically for school infrastructure and resources. The other part that I was interested in, Mike, too, is that so many times, and this happens in the United States all the time, we have our legislators, both at the state level and then at the federal level, they create mandates, without providing the funds to be, they're called unfunded mandates. So
yes.
They add something to the list of things that we need to go ahead and do, and then don't provide for the ability to be able to do that. Do you know what I mean? Mm. And it's such a horrible process, but we're so used to it, we kind of just ignore it. It's like, oh yeah, this next year, here's our new mandate that we need to go ahead and add to our, for example, our professional development or our security within our schools. But yet there's no funds that are there, or they're one-time funds. So you don't actually get them from that point forward. You might get them just for that year or 2 years, and then they disappear, and you still have to continue with that mandate. I saw here, though, that they are increasing the capacity for Title I schools.
What's Title I? Because, that's not a term I'm familiar with.
So we're talking about schools that usually are low-income schools. That's what we're talking about, Mike. Right. So these programs are specifically targeted for those, and too often we just don't provide enough funds there.
So this seems like a good thing.
This is a super good thing. Now, of course, this is just a proposal. So
it's a platform.
It's a platform. I actually like the platform for whoever decides to go ahead and run against Trump in the future. I think that teachers, just like in Canada, we would be excited to support a candidate who would put us on the top of their platform. Well, you know what I mean? Like, really put us at the top and say, hey, you know what? We've been ignoring this group of people for so long. Let's put them at the top and show you how we're going to basically fund this such an important aspect of our country.
It's time for teachers in particular, but people all over, to put away some of their partisanship and look at this, regardless of whether it came from a Democrat or a Republican, and say, how can you say no to $50 billion to increase teacher compensation? How can you say no to $50 billion to fix schools and to provide resources? How can you say no to providing low-income families with opportunities for programs?
Yes.
How can you say no to special education? if you're a Republican and you're still willing to say no to that stuff, boy, oh boy, I have a hard time understanding that position, regardless. I mean, I guess I understand single issue voters for some things. I don't want to get into it here because I could just go on, and I'm a Canadian and I have a hard time understanding some of this nonsense. The social conservatism stuff.
Yeah. But this is a good thing overall.
It's an amazing
awesome
thing,
and I really like that it's part of a platform, like you just said. So we are on top of that platform as educators, which, heck yeah, this is awesome. This is where we want to be at.
Speaking of where we want to be.
Okay, let's hear it.
The NDP in Ontario, so election coming around the corner. We've talked about it a little bit. The NDP are the de facto progressive party. We did a Political Spectrum 101 a few episodes back. You should go listen to that episode if you want to get a primer on where the political parties in the province of Ontario stand.
Yes.
But the NDP are very far left. They would be left of the Democratic Party. Okay. Very, very progressive. And surging in the polls. And when I say surging, it's went from probably at the beginning of the election 25% polling approval to probably about 47-ish% now.
That's huge.
And certainly well on the way to forming what we would call a majority government. Remember, we have more than one party. We have more than two parties. Yes. In fact, we have 4 major parties running in the election. So we don't need 50% of the votes to form what we would call a majority government. Yeah. We just need more than everyone else.
So 47
more than the rest of our competitors, basically. We need to be able to, without having to form a coalition, a voting bloc. So there's what's called a majority government and a minority government. Minority government would mean that you form the government, but you don't have enough votes to pass anything on your own. That's what Germany is actually in that situation right now. So it's possible that we could form a minority government, but I'll tell you, the NDP is on fire.
Yes.
Announcing so many great things, and this week announced basically a massive student loan forgiveness program.
Oh, I love this.
That would it would, Glenn, for you personally, it would make you go crazy. So they are turning all future student loans into non-repayable grants.
Okay.
So these
That's
don't have
amazing.
To be paid, they don't have to be paid back.
I'm liking this so far.
And then all current student loan holders. So I still have probably, I don't mind saying, whatever. I still probably have about $7,000 in student loans.
Okay.
It's not much, but I mean, it's
something. Yeah.
I mean, it's something. They are going to forgive all interest. So you still have to pay the principal.
Yes.
But they're basically saying the government should not be in the business of making a profit off of education.
I love that.
So no longer, so all future interest will be canceled. There will no longer be an interest payment. It'll just be principal. And all previous interest paid on current student loan holders will be refunded. That
is awesome. So you get the money back. And then you can use it to pay off your loan.
Dude, I've been paying student loans for 15, almost 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
How much
interest has that been?
Thousands.
A lot of money.
Thousands of dollars.
You could probably get enough back to pay it all off, and then you're done.
A couple $100 a year at least, $200 or $300. It's not been high interest, but it's been a couple $100 a year.
Sure.
In interest. So this is a big deal. A really big deal. And I'll tell you what it does more than anything. It sends a message. It sends a message that, the government is not in the for-profit education business. We do not want to be making money off the backs of our constituents. But it also says that, we want people to finish their education with opportunity.
Yes.
And one of the biggest problems we have in society now is that a graduate of a degree program is saddled with multiple tens of thousands of dollars in debt.
Yes.
And then is being asked to work a minimum wage job because of having no experience that pays nothing, very barely livable wages.
Yes.
And, you wonder why millennials are frustrated. When things are way more expensive than they've ever been, and it is way harder to get ahead these days.
Yes.
And to frankly do anything. And we literally just talked about it the other day about post-secondary education jobs. I mean, you can go and get your master's and your PhD and then still have a crappy job.
That's crazy, isn't that? That's just insane.
It's astounding to me that you can be a PhD and some university wants to hire you, but they're not going to give you benefits and they're going to pay you $10,000, $15,000 per course. So you would have to work like 5 or 6 courses just to
make a decent living. Yeah,
just to make a living worthy of a PhD. A person who's spent 15 years getting educated and would be considered an expert in their field.
Yeah,
it's astounding. So this is big news. It's super huge. It's very exciting. We're really pumped up here. Anyways, certainly the left is pretty pumped up here. It's still going to be competitive in some areas. It's certainly going to be competitive in my city. Pekka is working his butt off.
Yeah,
and we'll see how it goes. But overall, I think we might see Premier Andrea Horvath, and that would be pretty rad.
Yeah, I would. When this happens, when is the election actually? So just give
June 7th.
June 7th. It's really coming up. Yes. So you'll have to give us the results.
Yeah. So we'll go over the results when we get them in a couple weeks, and we'll see if I'm happy or if I'm sad or what's going to happen. We'll give you some analysis. We'll give a whole section dedicated to post-election analysis.
I hope you're happy.
So am I. I mean, this is a big deal. There's a lot of progressive policy in the NDP platform for Ontario. And I'll tell you, I wouldn't have a hard time saying that it would be probably the most progressive government in North America if we elected the NDP in Ontario. There's an NDP government in Alberta right now. Yeah. But they've definitely have to come to the right a little bit. Not as much as you'd think, but they have to come to the right a little bit. Alberta's certainly a lot more conservative than Ontario is.
Okay.
All right. So cool. I think that we're going to take a break.
Yeah.
And then when we come back, we'll tell you how to find the perfect teaching job, allegedly.
OnEducation is brought to you by Audible. Mike, what are you listening to?
So I've actually listened to this book twice as well. It seems like I keep listening to books multiple times that I really like, but this book's called The President's Club, and certainly a club Donald Trump's not going to be a part of because it's a book about presidents and how they grow to respect each other over the years and work for each other after they're out of the office of president. It's quite an amazing book, and I think you should definitely give it a listen. You'll come away learning a ton about presidents, how they treated each other, and how they've worked for each other and respected the office of the presidency. It's The President's Club, Inside the World's Most Exclusive Fraternity by Nancy Gibbs and Michael Duffy. And if you want to get this book, or frankly any other book, all you got to do is head over to audibletrial.com/oneducation. That's audibletrial.com/oneducation, and you can receive a free audiobook. Yes, free audiobook download.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's talk about dating.
Glen, I'm not single, buddy.
Well, this is a dating app for teachers, but it really isn't. It's just how they're advertising for it. There is this startup company called Selected. That's Selected, and they
sounds like a dating company. To be
It
honest,
does. I've been selected. I actually like it, and I think it's super interesting. They just received $1.2 million in seed funding, and they have this recruiting platform for educators. And basically, you create this profile. I actually went through most of it, Mike, but then I was afraid that I'd start getting recruited.
They're getting hit on by teachers, by schools.
It's like, yeah, the schools are hitting on the teachers. So basically you go through, and there's 8 states on it so far, and the DC area, and those are available currently. And basically what happens, you fill out a profile. So it does sound like dating, but it's really more like a resume. And it talks about your skills and your skill sets and what you're passionate about, and etc. And it actually asks you some more types of in-depth kind of, I wouldn't say not just personal questions, but basically matching you up, kind of like they would on a dating site, Mike. So like personality type questions. That's what I want to say, personality, you know? So what are you driven by? You know, what's your passions? And then it matches those specifically to school districts in these 8 states. And then what they do is the school districts end up paying, if they end up selecting you as a candidate, they pay like a one-time fee to this site, and that's how they're making money off of it.
It's eHarmony for teachers.
Yes, but the teacher itself doesn't have to pay anything. So that's why I thought that was like, that's pretty awesome. You fill out basically this thing on selected, and we'll make sure we provide the link there. And then you get recruited by a school district that matches you to them. So that basically, like, you already know that you're going to have a lot of things in common, like in dating, supposedly. But what's super cool about it, too, I think, is that there is a huge problem today in teacher attrition. Just basically teachers eventually just saying, I after 3 to 5 years is usually the case where they decide to go ahead and do something else, Mike. And a lot of the times on the feedback that they're giving is not only low pay, because we talk about low pay, or benefits or those kinds of things, but they just talk about, they're not vibing, they're not on the same wavelength as far as the vision, within that specific school district or whatever it might be. And I've been to a lot of school districts, and I've worked for a variety of school districts in a variety of different states, and it's true, each school has its own different specific culture, and some cultures match better with specific types of personalities, specific types of teachers.
Of course. Yes. Of course.
So this site's saying, hey, we're providing the ability to be able to match you together, to a match made in teacher heaven? I don't know. Teacher matrimony? So we'll provide the link for you guys to go ahead and check out. If you work in one of these states, it's Connecticut, Delaware, Massachusetts, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, which is huge, New Jersey and New York. Pennsylvania, also huge, and Virginia, and then, of course, the D.C. area. If you work in any of those places or you're searching out, jobs this summer, check it out.
We're willing to move, I guess.
Yeah, I really thought it was a cool idea, though. It's an interesting idea, and obviously someone else did, too, because they gave them $1.2 million to be able to kind of get it off the ground.
That's a lot of dough.
Yes, it is.
Their website is really nice. I'm kind of looking at it right now.
Yeah,
and
I'm impressed by it, man.
I mean, it's explained super well,
yes.
And I think the idea is great because there are huge. I mean, I'll tell you, I'm living through this.
Yes,
there are huge culture differences between different schools, and there are huge culture differences between teachers and the schools they work at.
Yes,
and also. Perceptions, ideas, opinions, people change and schools change. And as schools change and people change, sometimes they, just like relationships, Glenn, they grow apart.
Oh, that's so sad.
Right?
Yes. So if you're going through that school divorce, you may want to check out Selected.
We could run an ad for this.
I know. That's what I'm not pitching them on an ad, but I honestly think it's a really cool idea because
we are pitching you on an ad.
Yes, I've actually been through this process, and so have you, Mike. You're like, I mean, we have been out there as far as, looking at different schools and doing those kinds of things, and really, it's hard as a teacher to determine what that culture is like just through an interview process. You kind of have to do your homework, but then even then you still have to take a gamble, but in this case they're trying to match up those types of things that will fit both with the teachers' personality and their passions and those types of things, and then what the district vision and goals are then too.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, getselected.com. We'll put it in the show notes.
Awesome.
Pretty interesting. When we come back, we're going to talk to Paul Darvasi, who just finished his first post on the OnEducation blog. We're going to talk about that.
Friends, On Podcast Media is getting set to launch not one, but 2 new podcasts this summer. and we're excited to tell you about the first one, On Politics. On Politics is hosted by politician, professor, and human rights lawyer Craig Scott. On Politics will take deep dives into policy and politics. You definitely come away learning something every week. To stay up to date with On Politics, follow the show's Twitter account, @OnPoliticsPod. Well, welcome back, everyone. We have Paul Darvasi on our pod today. We're super excited to have you, Paul. Can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Thanks a lot, Glenn. I'm very excited to be here today. I'm an English and Media Studies high school teacher from Toronto, Canada. I teach at an all-boys school, and I've been experimenting with games and education and the various intersections of games and learning for about the last decade. Yeah. I've done stuff with video games. I've designed what are called pervasive games or alternate reality games, and recently I've been working on some location-based games.
That is so awesome. And we're huge fans of your work using alternate reality games. A lot of of your blog posts, I've of course read everything, but I've also shared a lot of your ideas in some of the presentations I've made, and also commercial games in the classroom. But this latest project that you have, it really is a new take on something, and it takes the best parts of apps like Pokemon Go, and if people know the game called Ingress, and it's mixing it with a pop culture icon. His name is Scott Pilgrim. And there was a movie about him and a cartoon type series about him. So tell us about your inspiration for this new project.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I'm really interested in is what's called environmental storytelling. And this is actually a big part of video games. As a video game, you're uniquely challenged to tell a story because you're giving up a lot of your narrative control to the player. The player is making all kinds of decisions that sometimes the person who created the game doesn't have control over. So as a result of that, one of the techniques that are used in video games is to plant narrative information into an environment. So, for example, when you walk into a saloon and the card table's been turned over and there's broken glass all over the place, and you can then surmise that possibly some kind of a dispute arose over a card game gone wrong. Yeah. These types of things are done all the time. Journal entries and letters and audio recordings that are woven into the environment. So what that really interests me. I'm really interested in storytelling and narrative in general, and I really like to explore how video games tell stories a little bit differently than films and books. And then what also interests me is getting kids out of the classroom. Yes. I feel that this is something we've been talking about for a long time, and I feel that yes, of course, we have field trips and we do little things once in a while to get out of the classroom. But especially in a city like Toronto, where I live, there are so many resources available in our midst that would make incredible learning opportunities. Mm-hmm. And what's even more exciting is as we start pushing more deeply into things like augmented reality, we're going to be able to layer digital information onto existing physical spaces. Yes. So I have this vision of students moving around the city, maybe with their augmented reality glasses, and as they arrive to certain sites, they can gather information. They can have the ghost of some historical figure talking to them about the significance of that house or that monument. They can find clues or letters or items that they collect to bring back to the classroom, and to really take learning out into the city. And I believe that ultimately will become an act of citizenship and connecting into our community, connecting into our city, and making learning more kinetic and dynamic. Of course, one of the big concerns about doing that now is safety. Yes, if we have kids wandering around in a dense downtown core with traffic and unpredictable individuals in the midst, this causes a lot of concern for administration or for parents, and I think that's one of the big hurdles that we have to cross rather. But I do see that with an increasing amount of accountability in the city space, for better or for worse, meaning self-driving cars, a more automated environment, better surveillance systems, which could entirely turn on us, but would certainly ensure greater safety, and the reduction of traffic in urban areas of concentration would probably allow for a safer use of city spaces.
Yes, love that. And especially I love the connection that you're making with these location-based games, really getting kids out and seeing parts of your communities that we always ignore. Because when we were out there playing games like Pokemon Go or Ingress, as I was reading your article or your blog post there, I was like, oh yeah, this is really interesting, because we start connecting with things that we just kind of just ignore in our daily lives, and start saying, hey, look at that monument there, or that mural, or that specific park, and start connecting, making those connections with where we live. So I really, really love that, and also love that this is out of the box and a student-driven activity. So how did the students react to this, and like what did they learn, Paul?
So the nature of the project was that Scott Pilgrim was originally a series of 6 graphic novels that was written by Brian Lee O'Malley, and they're hilarious. I mean, it's this slacker musician who meets his dream girl, an American girl who comes to Canada named Ramona Flowers, and he falls head over heels in love with her, and he starts sort of coming on to her, and then she says, look, if you want to date me, you're going to have to battle my 7 exes, right? And Scott Pilgrim's kind of a skinny guy that wears ironic t-shirts. He doesn't drink, doesn't smoke. He's pretty relaxed. And the last thing you expect him to be is this incredible warrior. And then what happens over the course of the graphic novels is each one of Ramona's past relationships, who've formed this kind of league of ex-boyfriends, comes after Scott, and he has these absolutely spectacular battles with them at various monuments and sites in Toronto, because Brian is originally from Toronto. So the graphic novel and then the film that was created based on the graphic novel, and it's an amazing film, I highly recommend you watch it, it's a lot of fun, are all based on Toronto locations, and they're all within a certain neighborhood, which happens to be the neighborhood where my school is. And if you were
that is so awesome.
It worked out really well. If you were to pin all the locations where this graphic novel takes place, my school is right in the middle. And when I realized this, I thought, how can I use this? I mean, here we have this great locally developed story that has been kind of globalized. These sites where the story takes place are all really incredible places. They're music halls that have been around for decades. A castle built by a Canadian industrialist, and some other kind of historical areas in the neighborhood. So what I thought is, I had watched a series of presentations at a conference a few years ago on a platform called Eris, which allows you to develop tours and location-based games in geographic areas pretty easily. And I thought, why don't we take Scott Pilgrim, take Eris, turn my media studies class into a game studio, and have these guys create a game inspired by Scott Pilgrim that will allow anybody who wants to do a tour of all of these locations through a Scott Pilgrim lens, but also learn a little bit about the city. And to answer your question, they absolutely loved it. I chose these guys, or I really wanted to work with them because they're a really special group of students for a class that I've been teaching for a long time. They're self-starters, they're motivated, and it's not a project that I would be doing every year. This is a one-off. Once this game is developed, it's not something that I'm likely to repeat. So it was a really special thing, and they knew that whatever product they delivered would be made available for the community to use, whether Scott Pilgrim's fans or tourists that want to get a different feel for the city and find some kind of out-of-the-way locations that may not be on the typical tourist map. So that sense of doing something for the real world, of breaking the boundaries of normal classroom structures, both geographically but also mentally and in terms of the stuff that they're designing, was a huge incentive for them. So that we broke them up into little teams and groups, and people played to their strengths, whether you were an artist, whether you liked computer programming, whether you wanted to be a leader, and we developed a very traditional studio structure and got to work.
I actually didn't realize that Scott Pilgrim... I've never watched the movie, sadly, and it's literally the thing I'm going to do as soon as I'm done this now. It's all... I didn't realize it was all set in Toronto, and I've been thinking about this because I was thinking about the article that you wrote that we're going to be publishing on the blog, and this project, and that this is like a love letter to Toronto almost, in the sense that there's so much going on here that's like, for you and I who are from here, can just appreciate how super cool it is to see like Lee's Palace and Casa Loma and TTC buses. I'm looking at pictures of all of the things, CN Tower, and all of this stuff it's about Toronto. It really is a unique opportunity to connect historical and regional areas that, again, you're like right around with your students. And I'm curious, I guess, how did you do anything outside of the project, or what kind of things were built into the project that really forced the students or encouraged the students to make those connections between the movies and the books and what they were looking at when they were out and about?
Such a great point, Mike. And I have to say, you're making me a little teary, because I think you're really getting to the heart of what this is. Toronto is an incredible city. It's a multicultural city, and it's not a city that gets a lot of press. I mean, people outside of Canada may know us for the Blue Jays, or for hockey, or for Drake more than anything else. But there's so much to be shared about this wonderful city. And it was not just a project to bring it home for the boys. And I'll get to your question in a second, but it's also a way to share a really unique and beautiful corner of the world. Mm-hmm. And the way it really brought it home for the boys was that for each of the locations, whether it was Sneaky D's or Lee's Palace or the Rocket or Casa Loma, they had to also offer some historical information about these locations. They had to figure out where they are on a map. And even though this goes to show you how we can become very blind to what's in our own backyard. I learned this lesson with the alternative reality games that I designed, where when the students think that there are clues in the school, where a poster can be a clue or a trophy cabinet can be a clue, all of a sudden they wake up to their environment. They start looking around and finding things they didn't know are there, because like all of us, you go into automatic pilot. When I take my daily walk to school, I take the same path, I see the same things, and I'm lost in my head. I'm not even really noticing my environment anymore. And we kind of become blind to our own environment. And I think that part of this project is agitating individuals to wake up to their surroundings. It's what inadvertently happened with Pokemon Go. All of a sudden, strangers were talking to each other. You were discovering cool little pieces of art that were, 2 blocks away from your house that you'd never seen before. So similarly, by having the boys map out these points, dig into the historical significance of these various locations, and also some of them weren't aware that these locations were 3 or 4 blocks away from their school, because they have their patterns of movement. They go to the subway station, they go home every day. They don't bother walking around and checking out what's going on around them. And we live in a very, very historically rich neighborhood. And this was not only sort of an offering for the public to learn about our neighborhood, but also an opportunity for these guys to plug into their city, into their community, and become more engaged in their environment.
I can't help but think we're going to be talking to Kurt Squire in a couple weeks, and Kurt obviously is pretty well known for writing his PhD thesis on the use of Civilization 3, the video game Civilization 3 in education, and connecting that to history. And I can't help but think that this is almost the modern day version of, you might have designed the modern day version of one of the best educational PhD theses of all time, in the sense that this is connecting the tools we have now, the augmented reality and Pokemon Go, and connecting them with historical areas of shockingly to some people historically significant city. I'm a history major. I studied Canadian history pretty extensively in university, and I know the stories of John A. Macdonald driving back and forth between Montreal and Kingston and Toronto, weekly, to do various government activities. And this is a barrier to entry that's been removed for kids to get engaged in history, and maybe they go and look at Casa Loma in your project and then want to understand the history of Casa Loma, and then understand the building of Toronto, and then how that is framed in the context of the building of Upper Canada, and then you're off to the races, right? This is an amazing opportunity.
Absolutely, and as you're suggesting, it's also a multidisciplinary task, right? I mean, these kids are designing, they're digging into history, they're digging into narrative, they're thinking about film and comic and storytelling. They're thinking about how to deliver not just a tour, but how you can turn that tour into a game that follows a particular storyline or it echoes a particular storyline. So it kind of points into a lot of different directions. And what I find really, just an amazing coincidence or synchronicity is two of the kind of intellectual giants that have been a huge influence behind this project are, of course, Marshall McLuhan, the world-renowned media guru, who really, he wrote a book called City in the Classroom because he absolutely believed that the city should be better leveraged and kids should be working outside of the traditional classroom environments and returning to a more dynamic education within the community. And then on the other hand, you have Jane Jacobs, who's one of the luminaries in urban design, who really has said so much about creating healthy cities and about returning cities to the pedestrian and not designing cities around cars, much like New York City was designed around cars by a guy named Robert Moses. And Jane Jacobs is just an incredible human being. I mean, if you read about her, it's really fascinating. And these two individuals both lived while they were alive within 2 or 3 blocks of our school as well. So not only is our neighborhood the source of inspiration in terms of creating the tour to all these historical areas, but the type of thinking that nourished the creation of this project is also rooted into our physical location. And I think it's a nice way to kind of tie it all together and make it meaningful for students and for anybody else that's interested.
So, Paul, I was thinking about this, and usually as a tech integrationist and as an instructional coach, I try to get teachers the path of least resistance to being able to go ahead and delve into something like this. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
And so how would you recommend the teacher get started? Of course, you feel a deep connection with your local community, and there's something to that part then too. But on the technical side, you said it was not that difficult as far as getting started, and your students really developed a lot of the game too.
Absolutely. So there's lots to be said there. The technology is of course very helpful, and Eris is great. Yes. There's a few glitches here and there, but overall it's a really fairly easy to use piece of software. For example, there's lots and lots of online sort of stories about teachers and students using Eris to develop all kinds of things. There's a guy out in Vancouver who developed a really great game that looked at his high school's participation in, I believe, the Second World War. Yeah. And he developed this whole game for his school, whereas the students played, they connected to the alumni of their school that were, probably long dead, and their stories and how they related to the start of the Second World War and who participated and what the different roles were. So by using a piece of software or software like Eris, it doesn't have to be a big neighborhood thing. You can actually just localize it to your school. Yes. There's also something else which I haven't used, but it's been recommended to me called Metaverse, which also allows for augmented reality to be layered on. But what I think is it makes a demand on a teacher, and I think it's an important demand. I think that the role of the teacher is going to change as we journey further into the 21st century. And I think teachers are going to start thinking a little bit more like designers. Yes. And I think that any teacher that wants to jump into this realm has to be prepared to take some risks. They really should try to push their creative boundaries to see, okay, this is our community, whether we're in a suburb, whether we're in the middle of nature, or we're in the heart of a dense city. How can I uniquely leverage my context and my culture to connect it to my students? Like, what's realistic within my environment? Another example is there's a great free app from the Smithsonian called LeafSnap. And what LeafSnap does is it allows you to identify different leaves from the North American Northeast. So, New York and Canada and all these northeastern states.
Yes.
And so, for example, if you live in a rural school or a school that's surrounded by trees, you don't need to develop a fully blown historical game. You can have your kids create a tree inventory by going around with their phones and identifying the leaves and figuring out what trees there are in their midst and doing something along those lines.
That's awesome.
So I think as more and more software is developed that allows us to articulate our environment and better connect to our environment, I think more and more teachers are going to have the opportunity to move their classes outside and have their students engage more directly with their community. And I think there's almost an infinite amount of ways of doing it.
Yes.
Starting with a platform like Eris or a platform like Metaverse, and starting with small steps is always a good idea. And then as your level of comfort increases, it becomes a lot easier to implement these types of things. And what I would recommend for sure is that the teacher use the software first. So maybe design a game for your students and then have your students design a game once you become more adept with the platform. And one thing I'd like to add, which is really fascinating to me, is by having education move outside and reconnect with the community, not be insulated inside of the institution of school, we start aligning our learning and teaching in a way that connects to indigenous ways of learning. If you think about it, the way that indigenous kids were learned was by apprenticing with the older people in their space, by going out into the woods, into the plains, and actually doing and physically connecting with their environment. I read something once, and I'm going to get all the figures wrong, that an indigenous adolescent could recognize 140 different types of plants and bushes and trees, whereas a North American adolescent today recognizes 140 different types of brands, right? That's what's in their environment, right?
True.
So I find that as the connectivity in these apps and the software is kind of paradoxically going to return us to a form of learning which I think actually makes a lot more sense than what has happened since the Industrial Revolution.
Yes. And so, Paul, how can our audience learn more about you and your projects and connect with you?
I have a blog called ludiclearning.org, and I share a lot of the stuff that I've been doing in the classroom. I write for Mindshift. I write for Edutopia. I've written a blog for you guys. My email address may be published on your site. It's certainly on my blog, and I'm always happy to open up correspondence with anybody that's interested because I really believe in sharing and being open and connecting to really make a difference in education and make life a little easier for some of the students that struggle in the existing system.
That's awesome. Go ahead, Mike.
So Paul's blog is Paul's article about what we just talked about is going to be published on the day that the podcast comes out. So we would strongly recommend that you visit our website. We'll be posting this on Twitter, links and information and stuff like that. So hop on Twitter, check out the link, go to the website and read this awesome post that Paul wrote for us. It's really quite great, and we're super thrilled to have had him on to talk about it. Thanks for being on the show, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. You rock.
You guys are awesome. I really, really appreciate you guys having me. I love your podcast.
OnEducation is an on-podcast media production. My name is Mike Washburn. My co-host is Glen Irvin. You can get in touch with us or ask us questions to answer on air by visiting our website, oneducationpodcast.com. You can tweet us at oneducationpod. Glenn is at Spanish on Twitter. I can be found on Twitter at Mr. Washburn. Our sound engineer is Jake Codeweiss. He's on Twitter at JK Radio. You can find us on Facebook by visiting facebook.com/oneducationpod. If you're enjoying the show and think others would too, we would be honored if you shared it with them. Please leave us a rating or review in Apple Podcasts or the Google Play Store. When you leave a rating, it gives our rankings a boost. This helps others discover the show. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Schoology, for supporting us. Check out Schoology.com to learn how they can help you advance what's possible. Thanks as always for listening. Stay awesome. See you soon.